Hey guys, it's Allison. Welcome to the Tiny Herd, where we talk about everyday pet care for guinea pigs, rabbits, and other small pets. Today's video, we are going to be talking about how to keep your pets warm in the winter time. It has been getting a lot cooler where I live and a lot cooler at night specifically. So there are a couple things that I do in the winter time to try to make sure that my pets stay nice and warm. Hello. Andy is literally up on my leg right now because he wants a snack. I don't know why they think I'm giving them a snack right now, but he totally does. Hi, there's no snacks here. This video is going to be more aimed at guinea pigs since they have a little bit lower cold tolerance than rabbits do, but some of these do also apply to rabbits. I will kind of give you a overview of the differences between guinea pigs and rabbits when it comes to temperature, so let's just go ahead and jump into today's video. Okay, so before we jump into the actual tips on how to keep your pets warm, let's talk about the ideal temperatures for both guinea pigs and rabbits. Like I said, this video is going to be a little bit more guinea pig focused, so I'm going to go more in depth on that, but I will give you a couple of tips on rabbits as well. So when it comes to ideal temperature, for guinea pigs, I usually try to keep the temperature between 62 and 72 degrees. Obviously in the summer it's going to be on the higher end, and in the winter sometimes it can get pretty close to the lower end depending on what kind of weather we're having. Now all of my pets, as you can tell I'm in the pet room right now, do live inside, and I highly recommend keeping your pets inside, kind of depending on where you are in the world. But if you're in the United States, generally I recommend keeping your pets inside because there's pretty much either weather extremes depending on where you are in the United States. So in my area, we have a pretty hot summer and a pretty cold winter because I live in the Midwest. So I definitely have to do some things to make sure that my pets are staying warm in the winter. That being said, they are inside, and I personally don't want the temperature inside my house to get below, like, honestly, 65 is about where we try to keep it. That's a good balance between, you know, our power bill and what we can tolerate being inside our house. But I also have to keep the pets in mind when it comes to what temperature we set the house at. Because of that, I've come up with a couple strategies to help keep my pets warm so that I'm not having to crank up the heat in our house, but they're still at a comfortable temperature. So like I said, we usually keep our house around 65 to 67-ish in the winter, I would say. Now when it comes to bunnies, I would recommend about the same temperature range, but rabbits actually like it a little bit cooler, so I try to keep it below 70 in here, especially in the summertime, because the bunnies are not going to tolerate the heat as well, also because Andy is a long-haired rabbit. So for them, usually the pet room is about 64 to 70 degrees at any given point. In the winter time, I usually try to keep it, you know, around 64, 65, the same as the house, and then do a couple things that the pets can get warmer if they need to. Really, 65-ish is the temperature that my pets are usually at, just like room temperature wise. And then let's go ahead and jump into some of the tips and tricks that I use to help my pets stay warm if they are feeling cold. So if your guinea pigs are cold, they actually will show you. So there are a couple signs you can look for. First off, they might not move around as much because do you want to move around as much when it's cold? But guinea pigs will also puff their fur up. So if you come in the winter time and your guinea pigs are all kind of like huddled and their fur's all puffed up, it might not be that they're sick. Normally people see that and they're like, oh no, my pig is sick. They're all hunched and, you know, look uncomfortable, but they might just be cold. So you want to see if you can either raise the temperature in the room or try some of these tips that I'm going to jump into now. So the first thing that I do with my guinea pigs specifically to make sure that they can get warmer if they need to is provide warmer beds. So I use fleece with all of my guinea pigs, and an easy way to make sure that they can get warm if they need to is to provide things like snuggle tunnels or other fleece beds that they can kind of huddle down into, fleece tunnels, snuggle sacks, all those different types of things that are a little bit cozier of beds, not necessarily just like a cube or something like that. Those do hold in heat pretty well, but I also like to give something like a snuggle sack or a snuggle tunnel or a foam tunnel because those can help them get warmer, and that way they can choose whether they are cool enough or warm enough. They can go in and out of those beds as needed. So that is something that I really like to do with my pets, especially my short-haired pigs. My long-haired pigs obviously are going to have an easier time staying warm, but for my short-haired pigs, I definitely like to make sure that they have snuggle bed type options in the winter, pretty much all winter, so that I don't have to worry about them getting too cold. Something else that I've done in the pet room, which does cost a little bit more, is we do actually have a space heater. So you can actually see it right here behind me on this table. We don't have the optimum setup in this room right now since we had to add a cage, but normally it's up on a table so the bunnies can't get to it and it can't be knocked over or anything like that. But it also does have a kind of like heat set on it. So it's not like I just have to turn it on or turn it off and I don't have control over it. It actually comes on automatically and shuts off automatically. So in the winter time, I have it set that if it goes below like 63, 62 in this room, it kicks on and it will oscillate so that it will spread heat throughout the room without blowing heat on anyone. And that way it'll warm up the room without, you know, causing drafts or superheating one cage and somebody else not getting warmth. So that way it just kind of raises the temperature of the room so that nobody is getting too cold, especially at night. Sometimes it can get really cold and obviously we're asleep, so we don't know how cold it can get. So the space heater gives me a lot of peace of mind that I know that they're going to be kept warm without me having to monitor the temperature in the room all the time. Make sure you're doing research on space heaters if you are going to get a space heater for your pet room, because it's not necessarily safe to just get any space heater and leave it on all the time. That can be a fire risk, so you want to have one that has safety features that if it gets knocked over, it'll shut off. If it overheats, it'll shut off. Ours is also on a power strip with a surge protector so that if anything happens with the power, it's not gonna like short out the space heater and, you know, cause a fire or anything like that. And then it is up on a table and I make sure to keep it clean because there can be a lot of dust from hay and that sort of thing. So those are things to keep in mind. Don't necessarily just get a space heater and put it in your pet room and just like let it run, because that's not really going to be safe, especially with hay and all of that can be a fire risk. So definitely keep that in mind. But I really like having ours, especially because we can have it up on a table and I don't have to worry about whether the pets are going to get cold. Another thing I will do in the winter if it's getting really, really cold and I don't want to depend on the space heater running all of the time is I actually will give my pets a full big pile of hay. So if you've ever given your pets just a big pile of hay in their cage before, guinea pigs will actually burrow into it and sometimes make a nest and sleep in there. It's really cute and they can just lay and eat at the same time. So sometimes I will just give them a big pile of hay if it's going to be really cold. That way they can just make their own little burrow. They can stay insulated and warm in there and they can just, again, choose on their own time whether they want to be in there or if they're warm enough or whatever they want to do. So that is also an option. Obviously that will waste a lot more hay because they're going to be laying in it and, you know, pooping and peeing in it. So bear that in mind, but it can be a good option, especially if you don't want to do like a space heater like I mentioned because of the safety concerns. You could just do a big pile of hay or something like that. And then the final thing I wanted to mention is you can actually use just pieces of fleece and fleece forest to insulate your cages so that they hold in heat a little bit better. So especially if you have cages that are like in front of windows or have grids in front of windows like I do, you can actually just take pieces of fleece and run them along the back of your grids or the back of your coroplast. I will put in some clips to show you guys what I'm talking about and where you could clip the fleece, but this is kind of just works as insulation. So if there's any like cold air coming from the windows or just, you know, it's colder in that area because of the window, you can use the fleece as insulation and it'll hold a little bit more heat into your cages. When it comes to fleece forests, I will again insert the ones that I use, but they cover over the top of the cage and down the sides, and that can work really well to hold in some body heat of your pets if they're laying under there and kind of give them a place that's insulated as well. So that again is something they can choose if they want to go in the fleece forest area or if they're warm enough just in the room and can wander around. So again, it's a choice. So I like to make it so that my pets can choose whether they're hot or cold because I don't want to risk anybody getting overheated from me trying to, you know, heat up the room. So that is a good option as well. I also wanted to mention a couple things when it comes to senior guinea pigs. So senior pigs will have a harder time keeping themselves warm, especially if they are short-haired or if you have like a skinny pig. They have a harder time staying warm. Their bodies are just working hard in general since they're older, so you want to make sure that they are staying nice and warm. Definitely snuggly beds for them, and if you could do like microfiber rugs or vet bed, things like that that are extra warm. Those will be really good for those pigs as well. I've also seen people use like dog heating pads or heated blankets and put those underneath the fleece in one area of the cage, and that way that area is staying warmer and they can choose whether to lay in that area or go to a cooler area of the cage, so you don't have to worry about them getting overheated or getting too cold. When it comes to heated things like space heater and heating pads, that sort of thing, like I mentioned before, those have a fire risk, so make sure you're using them in a safe way, that they have safety features that they'll shut off and not short out or overheat and that sort of thing, or just use them when you're home. So just be aware of that. Don't just, like I said, throw a space heater or a heating pad into a cage and just let it go, because that's not safe, and you don't want direct heat from a heating pad or a space heater. You don't want your pet to have access to like direct heat blowing right on them or their feet right on a heating pad, because they can easily get burned. So make sure that you're just using these things in a safe manner and are taking into account safety precautions. So as I mentioned, most of these things apply to guinea pigs, but the things like using a space heater or giving a pile of hay or the snuggly beds, those can all be applied to rabbits as well. Keep in mind that rabbits can chew fleece. My rabbits chew fleece really badly, so I don't give them any fleece stuff other than pads and liners. But if your rabbit is not a big chewer, you could give them fleece tents or hideys or beds. There's a bunch that you can find out there for rabbits, or even like cat houses work well, and that can give them a insulated place to go so that they can stay a little bit warmer. But like I said, rabbits generally like it a little bit cooler. My rabbits get really excited when it starts to cool off. Like this time of year, it's about 66 degrees in the pet room today, and the rabbits have been bouncing around while I've been filming and checking everything out. They've been exploring the house a lot more today than they have been when it's warm, so they definitely like when it is cooler, so I don't have to worry about them as much. But I did want to mention that some of these tips can be used for rabbits as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found today's video helpful and gave you some tips and tricks on how to keep your own pets warm this winter. If you did enjoy this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, I post on Instagram all the time, and I also have a Facebook page, so if you want to get more content from me and find me on a daily basis, the links for my social media will be down below, as well as my website, thetinyherd.com. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.